This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove and everything that we're talking about here today. So before we get ready to do the numbers, just real quick, I want to shout out Savvy and his wife. Please retweet this for them. It's a teacher giveaway. If you are a teacher or you know a teacher, make sure they enter this giveaway. Very nice of them, and hoping to get some help from everybody out here in the XRP space. So if you see this tweet, please retweet it. I know everybody's got a teacher they probably like back in the day. I know I'm an educator as well. So I think this is really great that they're doing this. Shout out to you, Savvy, and your family. All right, so let's get into this. Let's do the numbers, brought to you by PureVPN, guys. PureVPN is one of those layers of security that I use to help hide my anonymity online. If you're looking for a little extra protection, and I like the anonymity with the VPN, please check out the links in the description below, in the description box or the comment section. There's plenty of stuff there in case you need it. All right, let's do it. Bitcoin right now is $10,678.82. Ethereum, $351.21. XRP is 24 cents. Ladies and gentlemen, we're up almost 7%. And I don't mind telling you, we're going to take a look at those numbers real quick before we get out of here. Comparatively to Bitcoin, well, we are well away, and not in any way does it show that we are being correlated to Bitcoin at this point. Now, whether that remains a factor or not, we'll keep an eye on it. But we're going to look at some great information. The numbers here are 0.2479. We are up 6.4 on the one-day average. The 24-hour volume is looking like it is 1.6 billion. And we're up 6.3% on the 24-hour. Total market cap is 11.1 billion, and the total circulating supply is now sitting at 45,162,000,000. Those are your numbers. Let's go ahead and get into this. We got a lot to do. We are going to talk about the acceleration of payments, the acceleration of the adoption of digitization and tokenization for payments, for cross-border payments. You're going to hear from some huge people about that. And then we're going to hear about something we have caught a lot of flack about on this channel, which is we covered the debt service suspension initiative, or debt suspension service initiative, whichever one it is, DSSI. We covered that back in the summer, and man, did we catch a lot of flack about that, because I said I think this is our biggest indicator that we are going to graduate to a jubilee in a debt cancellation situation. We're going to look at that, and we're going to look at the schedule of the IMF. They have a lot of things coming up. One, they have I guess their quarterly or whatever, the yearly end, whatever it is, beginning meeting between the 12th and the 18th. And then there is another agenda that's happening on October 19th. Well, this has turned out to be an October surprise right here. So we're going to look at that and some stuff from the G20 as well. And I tell you something, I really feel like as we go through this information, I want you to remember this document that I put together on the show, and with the help of somebody out here in the space, they put the red boxes, the arrows, and the Ripple and XRP logo. Thank you to them. But this tells me, as we move through this information, I want you to keep this image in your mind. Keep this image in your mind, because this is what we've been watching here on this channel. From the international level down to the domestic level around the world, whether it's the U.S. House of Representatives passing that bill, or the Financial Conduct Authority, EU Commission, or Japan Financial Service Agency, right on down to the regulatory agencies and the U.S. Treasury itself, we are watching, I believe, the exact things you need to watch to see what is truly going to happen with XRP and the crypto space as a whole, because I do believe that the XRP asset is going to be a huge piece of the framework of the entire digital asset space, certainly back end for settling a lot of things like derivatives market, which we're going to get into that. So with that being said, keep this image in your mind as we move through this material. Let's get started here. So McKinsey & Company accelerating the winds of change in global payments. My, oh my, my, oh my. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I do want to let you know that the payments have gone off by 7% after, comparatively to 2019, pre-pandemic levels. Now, then they go on to talk about the revenue is down 11 to 13% below the pre-pandemic revenue projection for 2020. So I wanted to highlight that. And then I wanted to move here quickly from McKinsey & Company and show you this one last thing I think I have down here highlighted, I believe. Yes. And looking forward, new rules for engagement. One thing seems clear, however, the imperative to accelerate transformations to digital first and more agile organizations has never been greater, and it exists globally. This is not a siloed, isolated problem. This is a problem for the entire planet. Let's keep moving, because then we see Bank of Thailand launches world's first government savings bond on IBM blockchain technology. Come on in. Now, what they're really talking about here when you move through the article, as blockchain technology streamlines the processes of bond issuances issuance for issuers, say that 5 times fast, underwriters, registers, investors, and key ecosystem participants, the government savings bond platform now becomes an immutable, real-time single source of truth for network participants, which minimizes the redundant validation and reduces the cost of reconciliation. In addition, Thai investors can now purchase bonds up to maximum levels of their individual allocated quota from a single bank. I wanted to remind you that Siam Commercial Bank is participating in this. You would know that they're tied in with Ripple as well, and I believe so is Thai Bank. But I also wanted to say, too, that the IBM blockchain as technology and cloud platform partner, we know that that blockchain I believe that they're speaking of is really just basically Hyperledger and Hyperledger Fabric and all of that goes with it. And what I wanted to tuck into that is, if you're not aware, Ripple joins Hyperledger Consortium. We're in there, baby. We're in there. So when I hear those things, just know we're a part of it in some way, shape, or form. It's a collective effort by so many around the world. Okay, now Kevin Fallon, head of global business solutions at Visa, told Karen Webster that the consumerization and the digitization of B2B space are enabling firms to get the job, moving money done with efficiencies previously unknown. Let's just look at real quick comment from him on this, because he shows here the magnitude of what we're talking about here. The walls are coming down between accounts receivable and payables between buyers and suppliers in a $120 trillion global commercials payments market. Are we hearing this? Yeah, it's a bit of a big deal. That's not exactly pocket change, right? I mean, this is enormous. This is exactly what Ripple is after, the payments market, right? Oh my goodness, that is a lot of money. Now, moving into this, and shout out to XRP Crypto, Wolf, Michael Val, 5 Links, Jesus Trujero, and everyone, Bond Crypt, and all of you that send information. Really appreciate you, DJ Peter Vass. Cross-border payments, a new beginning on October 19th, 2020. What in the world are we talking about? Cross-border payments, that's what we're talking about. A vision for the future. High-level policymakers will discuss the advent of new digital currencies and the future of cross-border payments. Say it isn't so. Say it isn't so. Well, I don't want you to say it isn't so, because it is so. And we know it's coming. And I'll tell you something, again, I'm reminded the IMF, all of this, International Monetary Fund recommends XRP cross-border settlement and suggests FSOC can deem systemically important financial market utility or market infrastructure for RippleNet. Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that out there while they're talking about a new beginning and all. Yeah, let's look at the schedule. So panel 1, cross-border payments, is going to be at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the 19th. This panel of high-level policymakers will discuss the advent of new digital currencies and the future of cross-border payments. All right now. The focus will be on macro financial effects and monetary policy, financial stability, capital flows, financial inclusion. Whoa, that's a term we hear a lot. and the international monetary system. To what extent and how should policymakers collaborate to maximize social benefits and limit costs and risks? Kristalina Georgieva, managing director of the IMF currently right now, and it shows everybody else. Augustin Carstens, I can't say the gentleman's name, but he's from the governor. He is the governor, Mr. Ahmed, I'll say. I don't want to destroy his name, and forgive me for not being able to say it properly. The governor of Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, Augustin Carstens, we all know from BIS, Jerome Powell from the Fed, and the governor of Central Bank of Malaysia. Panel 2 at 9 to 10, cross-border payments, the private sector steps up. Yeah, we love hearing that. Current shortcomings of cross-border payments, new technological developments are an invitation to private sector to offer innovative solutions, which are some of the emerging solutions on how we might benefit from them. The panel will also uncover what private entrepreneurs expect from policymakers, regulators. Can innovation be encouraged while preserving a level playing field, ensuring interoperability of solutions? The moderator there, and let's see, we have Danelle Dixon from Stellar, who is also in the film Kryptonaires that is in post-production, and believe me, one day it will be done, and we will be really, really glad to show it to the world because it's going to be a great film. Shout out to Danelle Dixon for her participation in that and this New Beginning meeting, panel, whatever you want to call it. And then we have here Senior VP MasterCard and Renee Rensburg from CEO of Cello, or CELO, however you want to say it. Cross-border payments, the public sector's role, rapid advancement, technology, policymakers to innovate and work with entrepreneurs. What is the role of public sector versus private sector? Somebody please get Jerome Powell in that meeting. And new payment solution, improving cross-border payments. Can be the public sector keep up with innovation? What are the types of solutions being investigated by the public sector, and will these enter an evolution or a revolution? And here we see head of Secretariat Committee of Payments Market Infrastructure for Bank of International Settlements, head of FinTech South African Reserve Bank, the Associate Director Division Reserve Bank Operations and Payment Systems of Federal Reserve Board. And make sure you get those meetings, Jennifer, to Jerome, please. And then we have the Chief FinTech Officer for the Monetary Authority in Singapore, which we know where they're at because Singapore ain't playing around. They've been on the digitization track and tokenization thing. So, all right, cross-border panel for 4 up until 12 o'clock. And apparently these people don't like to work after lunch. So a global roadmap for improvements. The G20 requested that an international task force propose a roadmap of concrete actions to improve cross-border payments. The task force's co-chair will unveil this ambitious roadmap and kick off a public consultation with users, innovators, regulators, and policymakers, further refine the plan. And this is going to have Deputy Governor Bank of England and the Governor of Banco de Mexico. So we'll keep an eye on all of those things. October is shaping up to be a great month, I can tell you that, for cross-border payments and digital currencies alike. So here we go. Now let's go ahead and just remind ourselves we're $27 trillion worth of debt here in the U.S. national debt. Well, because, listen, you can't have a new beginning. I mean, that's what this is about. Well, this is a new beginning. Yeah, well, you can't have a new beginning if you're bringing $27 trillion worth of debt with you to the new party. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it because, we caught a lot of flack about this whole issue of debt service suspension initiative back in the summer in June when we covered this. And shout out to Michael Crowley, Michael C., for hooking us up with that back then. And here's what I want to say about this. This was about debt service suspension. Right? The forbearance, being able to push it and defer that debt. Well, there's been some developments. And we covered this back in the summer too, where David Malpass was urging for the DSSI, the Debt Service Suspension Initiative. And he goes through, and then basically he urged everybody to extend the time frame on the Debt Service Suspension Initiative through the end of 2021. So on and so on and so forth. There's massive amounts of money, right? Okay, now here's the problem. So they talk about $5 billion in debt service deferrals. But here's the problem, because I talked about this when it was happening, and I said, if you're going to have a debt jubilee, debt cancellation, all of this stuff, Nasara, Jasara, people talk about, if I'm holding your debt, it can't be as simple as erasing a chalkboard. someone has to make me whole. Because as a private person or company entity that's holding your debt to make money, because I lent you money and now you're defaulting, someone has to make that bondholder, the holder of that note, whole somehow. And we also talked about the idea that this conversation has to extend from suspension into forgiveness or cancellation, excuse me. I wanted to put a Z in it, cancellation at some point, because it's insurmountable. There's been a deliberate shutdown to the economy. Now, I just showed you the U.S. debt clock. Now, as horrible as that is, there's these smaller countries out here that can't suffer because they can't print their own money the way the U.S. can and just ignore what is happening. I believe that this conversation is going to get much bigger than just the small countries that David Malpass is now talking about. He says it is evident that some countries are unable to repay the debt because this just came out today from Reuters. They are unable to repay the debt they have taken on. We must therefore also reduce the debt level. This can be called debt relief or cancellation. Malpass has told Handelsblatt Business Daily in an interview. Well, let's just look at this really quickly at the end here because you get it. It's not hard to understand. And what he's saying here is that he basically says rich countries last month backed an extension of the G20's DSSI, approved in April to help developing nations survive the pandemic, which has seen 43 of the potential 73 eligible countries defer $5 billion in official sector of debt payments, amid warnings that the pandemic could push 100 million people into extreme poverty. Malpass has renewed his call for private banks and investment funds to get involved. And these investors are not doing enough, and I'm disappointed with them, David Malpass says. Also, some of the major Chinese lenders did not get enough involved. The effect of aid measures is therefore less than it could be, the World Bank, he said. So Malpass warned that the pandemic could trigger another debt crisis as some developing countries had already entered a downward spiral of weaker growth and financial trouble. The enormous budget deficit and debt payments are overwhelming these economies. In addition, the banks are there getting into difficulties due to bad loans, Malpass said. Look, this is interesting to me because these investors are not doing enough, and I'm disappointed with them. Oh, really? Really? You're disappointed with them? Oh, really? What, were you disappointed when they lent the money before they knew they weren't going to get it back? Because you'd be a little disappointed with me if I lent you money and then you started talking to me about not paying it back. I can tell you that. They have to find a way, if they're going to do this debt cancellation, somebody's got to eat the bill here, right? And it's obviously not the lenders themselves because they're not cooperating. And this is how you get the conversation to go from debt service suspension. If they're not cooperating for the suspension in a great degree, then you know they're not going to want the cancellation, which means somebody like the IMF or somebody else is going to have to come in, pay the note, or negotiate a price to pay on that note and pay that lender off, get them out of the picture, and then now that country is indebted directly to the IMF itself. That's how I see that for that. So now, before we get out of here in this October surprise, let's take a look at these numbers. Right now, XRP 0.2487, 24 cents. It wants to be 25 cents so bad. It's up 6.5% right now. But look at Bitcoin is what I wanted to show you. Bitcoin is at 10,695 and it's up almost 1%. So we're at 0.84. 0.84. That to me is exciting because I want to continue to see XRP grow on its own and not be correlated to BTC's price controlling the other altcoins. If we continue to see this trend, I tell you, I think good things are in play for us. Now, I don't know if this trend holds, right? We have to watch this. But what I will say is that this is very exciting. And I'll tell you something else that's pretty interesting too, is that seeing that there's 99, 100,000 traded in the past minute, and knowing that yesterday I was posting screenshots of more than 6 million being traded in 1 minute. All right, that's going to do it for me, guys. Hit the like and subscribe. It's an October surprise. I mean, we're talking debt jubilees for possibly 73 of the poorest countries. And look, I get it. I want to avoid 100 million people falling into extreme poverty too, believe me. But we got to figure out how you're going to get that done. Who's going to pick up the tab for all of that? Because it's been made obvious that the current lenders are not doing it. So keep an eye on that. And then the October 12th to the 18th IMF meeting. And then we have also the G20 pushing, as we know, for more financial inclusion and to get cross-border payments straight, as well as the IMF themselves. They're all participating along with the BIS and the Fed in these meetings that are coming up on October 19th about a new beginning for cross-border payments. Keep an eye on this diagram. I tell you something, I think this diagram really tells us we're watching all of the right things. That's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment below and share with somebody you know. I'll catch all of you on the next one.